You're listening to another ambitious entrepreneur.network.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to Business Women Australia podcast, the podcast for ambitious women who are serious about business success and leadership development, keen to increase their knowledge and skills.
So welcome to another episode of Business Women Australia podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross, also known as the Podcasting Queen. Now, my guest today says, we believe in the butterfly effect, effective risk solutions having an outwardly positive impact for the business on a whole. So joining me on today's show is Lizzie Nelson. Lizzie is a 34-year-old business owner as well as a wife and a mother to a wild little two and a half year old. Gorgeous. Passionate she is about providing exemplary risk advice to businesses across Australia, as well as creating positive change within the insurance landscape. Now on today's show, Lizzie is going to share exploring the role of an insurance broker. She's also going to help us overcome challenges and moving on from strength to strength, as well as an introduction to the financial wellbeing group. Welcome to the show, Lizzie.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks for having me.
This is, we were just talking before we went live, a very different environment, a lot of challenges, a lot of uncertainty for businesses. And I love that a little bit later on in the show, you're going to talk about how to overcome challenges and moving on from strength to strength. But firstly, I always love giving people an opportunity to give a bit of a snapshot on how did you become an insurance broker? What was your journey? What was the pathway to now doing what you do?
Sure. So I think a lot of people in my industry have the same answer. I didn't leave school and think to myself, off I go to be an insurance broker. I knew finishing school that I wanted to get out and work. I knew how important it was to work hard, do the right thing, get more. You know, I loved the idea of enterprise. So I got a job as a receptionist, and for the first couple of years just got used to obviously working full time. And then given that I was a receptionist at a large insurance brokerage, I really started to lean in and learn about what it was that I was surrounded by and fundamentally what these people did and the service they provided to their clients. I was really fortunate to do 98% of the work that I did before I started my own company with the same person. So under his tutelage, I really got to learn from the ground up what insurance broking is, what it means, the service that it provides, and how important that is. And it took a really long time. There are no shortcuts in this industry. It is hard work, it is long hours, but the end result is a fantastic experience for your client and for yourself as well. So I absolutely knew I was in the right place. It just took a good 17 years to really hone my skills enough to create my own company and take what I've learned and really launch it outward.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's nothing better than to know that someone that you invest with, such as yourself, has had such a solid building of the foundations and the knowledge. And there's nothing like being mentored by someone who's in that industry. So for those people who may be listening or watching or even catching the recording and don't really know what a day-to-day life is of an insurance broker, give us a bit of a behind-the-scenes snapshot, kind of the work that you do. And obviously you're passionate about what you do. So share a little bit about that as well.
So we do many things, and it really depends on the requirement of the client. A good insurance broker is customer centric. So we need to know what our clients need, when they need it, and in what fashion it needs to be delivered. So first and foremost, we're always advocating for our clients. It's not just renewals. So sort of, everybody thinks of insurance brokers. I ring them when it's my insurance renewal. They give me the invoice, we tick and flick and we move on. And it's just simply not the case. There are so many parts to a client's business. Thus, there are so many parts to my role. So obviously it's negotiating with insurance companies. It's managing the risk of the client as well. So sometimes they'll have a concern about something. Quite often we get access to the hallowed halls of that client's business. Quite often I'm part of some fairly intimate conversations around that business and what our strategy is for that client going forward. It's a very much a collaborative experience for the client and us as brokers. And aside from that, you've got a claims component as well. So if a client has a claim, for example, and claims don't just occur between 9 and 5 o'clock. I've had claims occur at 6 a.m. and at midnight. You have to be there for your client. You have to let them know that you are there to assist them. And that is an entire gamut of service. We're really there for whatever the client needs, but fundamentally it's the placement of the risk and managing the intricacies of that.
Yeah. And often insurance is one of those things that it's something that we know that we need to have, but may not necessarily know the consequences of not having something in place. So share a little bit about some of the things that you see businesses maybe not realizing until something happens and they think, oh, if only we had have known. Now obviously is that opportunity to understand more about the insurances that businesses should have in place, because what if, and of course we've been through what if scenario globally, and hopefully have more of an awareness. So take us a little bit into that, because I'm sure you have many clients and many businesses that you speak to that didn't even realize it was so important.
Absolutely. Cyber insurance is a big one. We have seen a massive spike in cyber insurance claims, particularly from the beginning of the pandemic, even from March onward. There has been a large spike in hacking attempts, phishing emails, all that sort of thing, that clients who are already busy trying to manage a global pandemic, for goodness sake, now you are being bombarded with attacks from people from all over the globe in terms of cyber exposures. So what we're seeing at the moment is the average cyber insurance claim, not including any theft of funds, is about $25,000. And if you are including a theft of funds and you have to put together a mandatory breach notification or anything like that, the costs are usually from $50,000 upwards. Your typical smash and grab at a retail store is simply not that common anymore. The criminal portion really lives online now predominantly. Cyber insurance is one of the most important insurances that I ask my clients, or I offer to my clients, to have, and to really think about, if they don't have it, what are their strategic solutions behind that? So, who's managing our IT? Where is our data being stored? Keeping in mind also that just because data is being stored by somebody else in the cloud or utilizing another service, that does not remove the onus on you as the insured when you are holding someone's data. So it's really being clear about, what are my exposures? How will we manage those? And do I have the right pieces of the puzzle in place to really deal with that if something does go wrong?
It's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know, which is why you really want to have someone such as yourself alongside to be able to guide and navigate. And do you find, obviously cybersecurity, we know of many instances which have happened, but as you said, since the pandemic has hit, more people are online, and unsuspecting people that are clicking on emails could find their database completely shut down, and that can be quite a costly exercise, especially too when so many more businesses are online now. Are there any other changes and surprises that have occurred because of what's happened in the world today, and what businesses need to be mindful of moving forward? Obviously cybersecurity, but are there other areas that businesses may not have even thought about in the past that they really need to start looking at more seriously now moving forward?
There are. An interesting one is your supply chain. So if you are relying on overseas suppliers, obviously a huge interruption to that business was actually just getting stuff in and out of Australia. Everybody talks about ordering furniture and it's a 6-month wait. Closely looking at your supply chains, have we got enough backup? Are we prepared if something like this happens again? We're all familiar with the sudden nature of what happened. It was like 1 minute everybody was talking about, is this a thing, is it not? And then all of a sudden we were locked down. So businesses had to pivot and recalibrate and really think about that. So I think it's a really excellent way to acknowledge that more thought needs to be put into, what have we got in the background to bolster us if something happens. And something else I would bring up also is allowing or having staff work from home does change the parameters in terms of how are your staff working, workplace health and safety. Have you got your checks and balances in order? Is everybody working to the guidelines that are mandated for you? Really being careful of that and really understanding what your exposure is as an employer, and just being aware of who's at home, who's in the office, what are they doing? Are they physically safe? There's a mental health component to that as well. And I believe that in the coming months and into next year, we'll really see a shift in the requirements of employers.
Yeah, I heard, I read something not so long ago that this was coming into effect. So, I mean, just hearing you share this, I'd imagine then, but from the sound of it, that as an insurance broker, you're also able to look at someone's business, find out more about it, and then pinpoint, hang on a minute, have you got this in place? Let's look over here. Because you kind of run through some of those scenarios, risk scenarios that could possibly be an issue should something happen. Am I correct in assuming that you're able to kind of have a look over the business and then go, look, these are the key areas that we really need to get that support and plan in place?
Of course. And you know, keeping in mind that a lot of our clients have built their businesses from nothing. They are passionate individuals. You know, Australian small business employs 2 out of every 3 Australians. They are a very powerful group of people, but they're also very busy. You know, there's only so many hats you can wear in one day. So it's extremely important to have a group of allied professionals there for you, insurance broker, solicitor, and so on, that you can rely on, and they can actually really assist you in moving through your day-to-day and allowing you to focus on what really matters for you, instead of, have I done that? Is this insured? When does that expire? Is this claim paid? Where is that at? And so on. It's almost unfair on the business owner to have to manage all of that, plus all the other bits that they want to do and the focus that they're trying to place on their business itself.
I mean, having to run through the business or run the business while you're navigating through having to run a claim, I would imagine having someone such as yourself be that middle person, the one who goes in between and then obviously connects with the insurance company and navigates all through that on their behalf, is so helpful in those stressful times for sure. So let's then segue beautifully into the next point, you know, overcoming those challenges, moving on from strength to strength. I know that you wanted to share some insights into this area too. So floor is yours. What insights can you share?
Yeah, look, I think at the moment we are, as a global community, there's a lot of ambiguity around. You've had the election, everybody was really freaked out about that, and everything's changing on us all the time. Borders are opening, borders are closing. There's different rules depending on who you speak with. In terms of the insurance space, it's a hardening market. There's no doubt about that. It is challenging. I know clients are really feeling the pinch in terms of their bottom line has changed regardless, and now you've got the insurance market hardening. But let's get proactive instead of being reactive. Let's work with our professionals. Let's say, okay, what can we do about this risk right now to present it in the best light? And those are things like getting out early to insurers. Is your broker coming to you nice and early and saying, right, this is what we're doing here. Let's go through how the business is going. What are we strategizing moving forward? Staying in that proactive space, looking at different things on your insurances like the deductible levels, risk mitigation measures. Should we get a risk surveyor out to the site to have a look at it and really present the risk in a positive light? I really think that, as I said, small business in Australia is so powerful. There's such an excellent bunch of people. I get to speak to them every day, and every time I hang up the phone or leave a meeting, you're just buzzing with their energy because they're such dynamic individuals that I really think we should stay in that power and really be proud of ourselves for being dynamic enough to survive the pandemic and get proactive in terms of moving forward. Watching our costs, absolutely. There's no point in me putting my head in the sand and saying people don't buy on cost, because right now that's what they are doing. So let's maintain the cover we've got using a strategic solution.
And I'd imagine too, I mean, there may be some instances where you're able to analyse and go through existing policies that are in place that may not necessarily be relevant. And I'd say that for many business owners, because they're so busy working in the business, on the business in those areas, it's hard to read between those fine lines and say, well, hang on a minute, if we kind of maybe shift some of that insurance in this area now, this is far more of an area where you want that coverage. Those are the kind of things that you can look for and oversee too, yes?
Absolutely. It's really, I say it's, the insured party needs to review what they've got. But if you're not even sure what you're reviewing or what's in place, it's really, really hard to make sense of it. And I will review policies on a daily basis. We have to be at the forefront of what's going on in the marketplace, and we have to be aware of the exposures that apply to that client. So I'm not sure how business owners could do it without the assistance of somebody else, unless they're just renewing with an insurer that they're happy with and that policy does not change. But when insurers are in a hard market, they do minimise their risk appetite. They will take cover away sometimes if they need to, and they will increase excesses if they need to. So something really important for clients is to really, if you are dealing directly, look very closely, read the fine print. In the email they've sent you with your renewals, have they taken cover away? Because all they've got to do is put it in writing to you and it's gone. Yeah. So it's really important.
Say, well, I'm sorry, didn't read it. And I'll be the first. And that's why I popped back in. So I'll be the first to admit that I often glaze over fine print. If it's anything to do with us personally, I'll just give it to my husband and go, you read through it. Because he's like, and you'll get all of those. You need someone like that. If we're not doing that, you need someone such as yourself. Because as you said, I mean, insurance companies are always shifting and changing too. And it's other factors really impact the decisions that they make, don't they, as to policies moving forward and coverage, all of that, doesn't it?
Yeah, perfect example is the nightclubs. So in a soft market, it was pretty easy to insure nightclubs, but they're high hazard. You have a lot of third-party slip and falls and that sort of thing. But in a soft market, rates are free and easy, and it was easy enough to place the cover. Then all of a sudden, a few years ago, no one wanted to write nightclubs anymore. So it got very expensive. There was 2 or 3 insurers that were doing it. Some were overseas in Lloyd's of London. And all of a sudden the market just changed in the space of a few months. And what looked one way a few months ago looked completely different a few months later. So you need someone that knows that's coming, knows that's happening, is talking to insurers and underwriters, understanding the changes that they're going to make. And perfect example, I spoke to an insurer the other day that will remain nameless, who has started taking little pieces of one of their policies, some of that coverage out, was getting a very negative reaction from the market, and is looking at re-adding them back in next year. So it really needs to be a space that somebody is aware of what's going on and can actually look forward and project as well.
Yeah, so true. I mean, from a personal point of view, we went to update insurance on investment homes. And one of the insurance said, we'll do it on existing, but we're not going to do it on new properties because, going into the pandemic and the shutdowns, they knew that there was going to be a huge strain. And they can change their minds like that, can't they? They really
can. And that's something else to think about too, Anne-Marie, and I'm glad you brought that up, is if we get, the Bureau of Meteorology has just said we're in it now, I think, our La Nina season. So we're going to get some wild weather. We've got a higher chance of tropical cyclones, heavier than normal rainfall, and so on. If wild weather is around the corner and we're getting all the warnings and there's going to be, let's say, a hailstorm predicted tomorrow, an insurance company will put embargoes on, meaning no changes to existing policies and there's no new business being put on. So what I would strongly recommend is get on top of it now in terms of, do you have questions about any excesses that you've got? Are you in a hail-prone area? Do you need to talk to the insurance company your broker, whoever, about what it looks like if something did happen? Because if you leave it to the last minute, there is a very good chance that insurer will say, too bad, you'll have to wait now.
Yeah. And I'm sure if we had a broker such as yourself, you'd be making sure that we had that well in advance and said, by the way, did you know that X, Y, and Z is coming? We need to look at that. These are all things, we may miss. And it can be so expensive and such a missed opportunity if suddenly we did need to look at getting some form of compensation. And they said, I'm sorry, but your cover doesn't cover that. Very expensive.
Insurance AdvisorNet too. So I work under the banner of Insurance AdvisorNet. I'm Evolution, and we work under Insurance AdvisorNet. They actually have a system that sends text messages out and emails out to our clients to let them know that the weather is coming. So it's just an additional service to give our clients. If I can't get a hold of them, and normally I speak to everybody, but if whatever it is and they're in meetings, they're away, we will always let them know if there's something that we've noticed on the horizon that's coming and they need to know about. That's just part of our service offering.
Yeah, and a brilliant one too, because as I said, as business owners, there's many different plates that we're spinning and balls that we're juggling. The last thing that we need to is my insurance up to date, and all that.
I know.
Well, look, I mean, I can just hear the passion in your voice. And before we just dive in a little bit more, you're sharing around Financial Wellbeing Group, I'd love to know, what's so passionate for you about an insurance and helping clients and so forth? What is it for you, do you think?
In fact, I was reflecting on this because I knew we were going to talk about these things today, and it was such an interesting reflection point. I had started doing years ago lots of professional development around myself and understanding what are the things that drive me and what do I enjoy and what's my passion. And it's really service to others, my family, my friends, my clients. It's all service to others, and it's such a powerful thing in terms of serving yourself. And I realized I can combine that with a business idea of insurance broking, and really have the two parameters combine. And when I sort of had that watershed moment where I went, okay, this is absolutely a commercially viable option and I can use all of those things that I love to do anyway, it just made sense to me. One of those sickos that really loves their job. I love helping people. I love the reassurance that you can hear in someone's voice. And when they can ring me at 6:30 in the morning and go, Lizzie, this thing's happened, or on the phone to insurers, or I'm out at the site. And, I get to watch businesses grow and flourish and pivot during really challenging times. I mean, it's almost like, how could I not love it? It's a real privilege, and we're very, very lucky.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, there are some situations, you just explained one, where all of a sudden something happens and there's a challenge and you just click into action and you know that you'll problem solve that, you'll go out and you'll help oversee that to conclusion. And I think it's in those instances as business owners, when they're in the thick of things, surrounding themselves with people that said, you know what, I got this, you go and focus on what you need to do, I'll handle that. It's so reassuring, because the team that are around us and support us in those moments and how we navigate through that really is going to determine how we move forward. So share a little bit more about Financial Wellbeing Group, please.
So I met Natasha Neary. She owns Financial Wellbeing Group. In the first sort of few weeks that we had launched our business, I was looking for referral partners and really kind of people that were aligned with me in terms of my values, and we really spoke to each other. And Natasha and I met and sort of came together and said, what can we do combining our companies to really service or provide an all-inclusive service offering? So the Financial Wellbeing Group does asset finance, all sorts of assets, commercial, domestic, you name it, they do it. Natasha built that company from nothing, and it is flourishing. It's a very, very impressive company. And now I am the insurance broking arm for that. So you can actually go get your finance for your asset and then insure it via me. So it's sort of an all-inclusive offering. It just means you're not ringing around trying to get the best cover, trying to find the most competitive premium. What am I doing with my interest rates, etc. It all really comes back to being one hub for the client. So what should be a really exciting transaction for someone can get very stressful, very litigious, very fast. And what we're offering is a whole of account, if you will. So getting the finance, getting the asset, insuring it, and you're in one place. You don't have to run around. I mean, I don't know anyone that's got the time to do that anymore. And it takes the sparkle out of the transaction. This is supposed to be a very exciting time for most people. So we're trying to soften that by offering a sort of a full service.
Yeah, I'd imagine too, as businesses are growing, and you've confirmed that a couple of times, where one of the things that you say you're passionate about is when you see your clients starting to grow and starting to get bigger. And of course, one of those things that we often see in growth, particularly if you're working with a business that needs to invest in equipment and other things to be able to expand. Often what can become a barrier is, we need to go and get finance and all that. Who do we go to? What's the best place? Say, you know what, we got that covered. And too, working together, that has its advantages too, because as Financial Wellbeing Group, you're building a reputation with a lot of those service providers, those insurance company, the places, that the funding, the lending institutions. And I think established relationships or pre-established relationships that as business owners we can tap into is gold, because it could take us years to build the kind of network that you and your business partner are generating. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. It becomes very clear that you need to align yourself with people that believe in the things you believe in. When you're a business owner, and I'm sure many business owners would agree, you start to see that not everybody operates in the same way. So when you are around other people that really align with your values, I believe it's extremely important to merge the two wherever possible, seek their counsel, work together. It's always for the benefit of the client. No one loses there. So, you know, for me, I've got close relationships with insurers, very close relationships with my clients, and it's really always for the benefit of the client at the end of the day. So we're always sort of client-centric in that space also.
Yeah. One of the things that I find that when you start to build these alliances and networks and connections with people, what's also beneficial, and you mentioned cybersecurity and supply chains, which often require international, global, and we're fast recognizing that what can happen in one side of the planet can impact and almost shut down the rest of the world. So if a business is seeing that, you know what, our expansion now is also looking at going internationally, I mean, is that an area that some of your businesses, you know, your clients are actually stepping into? Because international kind of requires a whole other area of expertise and knowledge. Are we covered? Are we not covered? All of those sorts of things. You're seeing that that's happening too?
Definitely. I have some clients that export their products to the USA and then to other places. It's an interesting one because the USA, for example, if you're exporting a product to the USA, given the way that the USA functions and there's such a high chance of litigation, there are different rates that apply from different insurers depending on where you're sending your products to. So there's work in just figuring out, okay, where is it going? How are we going to ensure that? If the client is creating their own storefronts, etc., in that, or they're going to have sort of a domiciled location in that place overseas, and they would need to seek insurance locally. But just in exporting products, there's work in just finding out where is it going, as I said, how are we going to get there, who's actually responsible for the shipping, because quite often you have different agreements with different transporters. You know, again, it needs to be a collaboration. It needs to be you and your broker going, what's the best way to do this in terms of my insurance? What would it cost to do X? What would it cost to do Y? And really building that into your costing.
Yeah, brilliant. And again, this is something that a business owner would have to research and investigate on their own. And again, we may not see the fine print, and it's always, I would say, let me ask you this. Are the things where you find that businesses seem to get unstuck is because they didn't read the fine print?
Yes, but you know, yes. I mean, who's going to read? Who wants to read fine print? I know, I understand. It's I read the insurance fine print, but other fine print, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm under no illusion that someone's going to sit up at 9 o'clock at night flicking through a policy wording. However, it can be really tricky. And what I would say is reading the exclusions in a policy wording and the insured events is a really good place to start. What's excluded? If there's something on that exclusions list that sticks out at you and you thought, oh, wowzers, I really thought that was insured, red flag. Insured events, if it's not listed under the insured events, it might not be insured. Again, really pay close attention to that. But look, a policy wording can be 60 pages long. It's all fine print, isn't it? So talk to your professional. Ask 1,000 questions if you need to.
Yeah. If you're not sure, that's one of the reasons why you go to people such as yourself, Lizzie, who
Yes.
geek out. And you've been through that scenario and experience so often. You kind of know the right questions to ask, and even the right places to go and see. You know that these sort of insurance companies are the best to go to for that particular area. They specialize in that sort of area, and I'm sure you've probably got connections and contacts within those companies that can sort of help you if you're not quite sure and need that validated as well. So share a little bit more about how people can connect with you, Financial Wellbeing Group. What's the best way
Sure.
that they can find out more?
Okay, so we're on LinkedIn, obviously, and Facebook. I've got a website, evolutioninsurancservices.com.au. I also have another website underneath the Insurance Advisor Net banner, so you can sort of learn about the group, which is it's a really exceptional group of insurance brokers, very high standards. You'll read all about that there. And I'll link my details when I post this as well, with my mobile number, etc. So you'll come straight to me. I've got an administration team, but I am the director of the company, obviously. So you will speak straight with myself about your policies, and we are here and ready to go.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, thank you for coming on the show. I know that Business Australia has got some awesome members such as yourself, and you know, it's often in business, as we mentioned throughout the conversation, working in our own businesses can often be challenging enough with everything that we need to navigate. And so being able to tap into a collective, which I know Business Women Australia has done and continues to do and will do moving forward, is having such as yourself, specialists who love what they do. And the reason is that they're good at what they do. And please don't struggle on your own. And where are you based, by the way? Because we are global. What I was going to say global. We are national, of course, Business Women Australia. And you would deal with people nationally as well, or more in your area?
So I'm on the Gold Coast, but I've got clients in Victoria, Western Australia, throughout Queensland. And quite often some of my clients will have other locations in other states as well. So I'm certainly not bound by Queensland only or anything like that. We are everywhere, which is great.
It is great. And of course, if you are in Queensland and you want to find out more about possibly connecting with Lizzie and maybe even becoming part of Business Women Australia, you can go to their website, businesswomenaustralia.com.au. And who knows, now that we're able to travel and Queensland is opening the borders to Victoria again, maybe we'll be able to connect at an upcoming Business Women Australia event, which I know everyone is looking forward to. So
yes,
thanks.
We now kind of plan one for January.
Oh, fantastic. That's exciting.
So, yes.
All the very best, and thanks once again for coming on the show, Lizzie.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.